Imagine you are living in the late 1800s and the world is pitch black as soon as the sun goes down. No streetlights and no glowing screens to keep you busy, just you and a smelly candle made of old animal fat. The entire human race is waiting for someone to flip a switch and change the world forever. Enter two of the biggest egos to ever walk the earth, Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla. This is not your boring high school science class about volts and ohms and annoying math. This is a story about corporate sabotage, public animal executions, and a massive $50,000 lie. Welcome to the smartest and most petty street fight in human history. Let us start with Thomas Edison, who everyone calls the Wizard of Menlo Park. Edison was a self-made man and a stone-cold capitalist who figured out that inventing things was great, but owning things was way better. He did not just want to light up the world, he wanted to own the sun if he could find a way to patent it. He was the ultimate boss who worked his employees to the bone while taking all the credit for himself. By the 1880s, he was the king of electricity with his direct current system, or DC. But DC had a massive problem because it could only send power about a mile before it gave out. You would basically need a power plant on every single street corner to keep the lights on. Now meet Nikola Tesla, who is the definition of an absolute weirdo and a total genius. Tesla was a Serbian immigrant who showed up in New York in 1884 with nothing but 4 cents in his pocket. He also had a book of poetry and a recommendation letter from Edison's business associate in Europe. The letter basically said, "I know two great men, and you are one while this young man is the other." Tesla was tall, thin, and spoke 8 languages, but he also had some serious mental issues. He was obsessed with the number 3 and hated touching hair and could calculate complex physics in his head like a human computer. Edison hires Tesla and immediately realizes this kid is on a whole different level of intelligence. Tesla tells Edison that his direct current system is actually kind of trash and inefficient. He pitches his own idea for alternating current, or AC, which could send electricity over hundreds of miles. Edison looks at this brilliant immigrant and tells him that AC is a waste of time and way too dangerous. But Edison has a problem because his own DC generators are breaking down and costing him a fortune. So he tells Tesla, "If you can redesign my crappy motors, I will give you a $50,000 bonus." In today's money, that is over $1.5 million, which is life-changing wealth. Tesla goes into beast mode and works for nearly a year without taking a single day off to finish the job. He redesigns 24 different types of machines and makes Edison's company way more profitable. When he finally finishes, he goes to Edison's office and asks for his $50,000. Edison looks at him and starts laughing like a villain in a cartoon. He tells Tesla, "You don't understand our American humor," and refuses to pay him a single penny. Instead, he offers Tesla a tiny $10 a week raise, which is the ultimate insult. This is the moment when Tesla finally snapped and realized his boss was a total douchebag. Tesla quits on the spot and walks out into the New York streets with zero money and zero plan. He ends up digging ditches for $2 a day just to buy enough bread to stay alive. Imagine being the smartest man on the planet and spending your afternoons shoveling dirt in the cold. It was the lowest point of his life, but Tesla was fueled by an unquenchable thirst for revenge. While he was digging those ditches, he met some investors who realized this ditch digger was actually a god. They helped him start his own company, and soon Tesla was building the future he had always dreamed of. Tesla perfects his alternating current system, which is light years ahead of Edison's direct current. It is more efficient and cheaper and can power entire cities from a single plant. But a genius scientist is usually a terrible businessman, so Tesla needs a partner with deep pockets. Enter George Westinghouse, who was Edison's biggest rival and a man who loved a good fight. Westinghouse buys Tesla's patents for a massive sum, and the two of them team up to take Edison down. Now the war of the currents has officially begun, and things are about to get very messy. Edison sees the AC system gaining popularity, and he starts to freak out because his empire is at risk. He knows he cannot win on the math, so he decides to win using fear and propaganda. He starts a massive campaign to convince the public that alternating current will kill them in their sleep. He calls it the executioner's current and says it is only good for killing people. Edison starts holding public demonstrations where he electrocutes stray dogs and cats using Tesla's system. He wants everyone to see the sparks and the smoke and think that AC is pure evil. But Edison does not stop at just small animals because he wants a knockout blow. He hears about an elephant named Topsy that had killed a few people and was scheduled to be put down. Edison shows up with his film crew and electrocutes the giant animal in front of a horrified crowd. He films the whole thing and shows it across the country to prove that Tesla is a madman. It was a psychotic move that showed Edison was willing to do anything to protect his bottom line. He even helped design the first electric chair using AC just so people would associate Tesla with death. Despite the animal executions and the scary movies, the public starts to realize that AC is just better. The real showdown happens in 1893 at the World's Fair in Chicago. This was the biggest event of the century, and whoever provided the electricity would win the war. Edison bids over $500,000 to light the fair using his direct current system. But Westinghouse and Tesla underbid him by nearly half because their system was so much cheaper. Edison is so pissed that he refuses to let them use his patented light bulbs for the fair. Tesla laughs and says, "Fine, I will just invent a better light bulb that does not use your patents." And that is exactly what he does in just a few weeks, like it was no big deal. When the fair opens, the crowd is stunned as millions of lights flicker on all at once. It was the greatest light show in human history, and everyone knew that Tesla had won. Edison was left standing in the dark while the world celebrated the new king of electricity. The victory in Chicago leads to the ultimate prize, which was powering Niagara Falls. Tesla and Westinghouse build the first large-scale hydroelectric plant at the falls and send power to Buffalo. It was a massive success and proved that AC could power the entire world from a distance. Edison is eventually kicked out of his own company by his investors who are tired of his losing battle. They rename the company General Electric and immediately start using Tesla's alternating current. It was a total betrayal, and Edison had to watch his own creation embrace his enemy's invention. Tesla had achieved his revenge and his name was being cheered across the entire globe. But if there is one thing we know about Tesla, it is that he was his own worst enemy. Instead of retiring rich and famous, he decides to dump all his money into even crazier ideas. He becomes obsessed with wireless power and wants to send electricity through the air for free. He builds a giant tower called Wardenclyffe on Long Island to prove that cables are for losers. But his investors realize that you cannot put a meter on free air, and they pull all their funding. The tower is eventually torn down for scrap metal, and Tesla is once again left penniless. As Tesla gets older, his eccentricities turn into full-blown madness and he becomes a total hermit. He moves from hotel to hotel and spends his days feeding pigeons in the park. He claims he has fallen in love with a specific white pigeon and that they communicate through light. He starts telling the press he has invented a death ray that can vaporize entire armies from miles away. The FBI starts watching him because they are actually scared that he might have built it. He dies alone in room 3327 of the New Yorker Hotel in 1943. Edison, on the other hand, dies in 1931 as one of the most famous men in America. He spent his final years being celebrated as a hero and an icon of American industry. But history has a funny way of remembering who the real genius was in the long run. Today, we don't use DC to power our homes because Edison was wrong about the science. We use Tesla's system every time we plug in a phone or turn on a light. Tesla may have died broke and talking to birds, but he is the one who actually built the future. The rivalry between these two men was more than just a fight over wires and light bulbs. It was a clash between a ruthless businessman and a visionary who didn't care about money. Edison wanted to own the world while Tesla wanted to give the world everything he had. One died a billionaire hero and the other died a forgotten madman in a hotel room. But if you look at the world today, you will see Tesla's ghost in every single spark of electricity. In the end, the smartest street fight in history didn't have a winner until 100 years later. Tesla's legacy was buried for decades while Edison's name was written in every single textbook. But the internet age has rediscovered the man who invented the 20th century. We now name the coolest car companies after him and treat him like a scientific saint. Edison is now remembered more for his shady business tactics and his war on elephants. It just goes to show that you can steal a man's money and his fame, but you cannot steal his genius. The sparks of their rivalry still fly every time we flip a switch and light up the night. So next time you turn on your lights, remember the Serbian weirdo and the American boss who hated each other. Remember the ditch digger who outsmarted the most powerful man in the world and won. The War of the Currents was a brutal and insane chapter in human history that changed everything. And it all started with a $50,000 lie and a man who wouldn't take no for an answer. Genius is often a problem for the person who has it, but it is a blessing for the rest of us. Thanks for watching GNIOS Problem Ticos, and we will see you in the next fight. But the truth is, this war did not start in a laboratory with blueprints and copper wire. It started in the mind of a man who thought he was a god and another who just wanted to pay his rent. Let us back up a bit and look at the early days of Thomas Edison, because to understand why he was such a brutal opponent, you have to understand that he was not just an inventor, he was a professional survivor. Before he was the Wizard of Menlo Park, he was a kid selling newspapers on trains and setting up chemistry labs in baggage cars until he accidentally set a train on fire, which is honestly the most Edison thing ever. He learned early on that the world does not reward you for being smart, it rewards you for owning the idea and making sure nobody else can touch it. He was a patent freak who would sue his own grandmother if she tried to invent a better way to bake a pie. He built a factory of invention where he hired the smartest nerds he could find and forced them to work 20 hours a day. While he took all the credit, he once said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration, but what he forgot to mention was that most of that perspiration came from the people he was underpaying while he sat in his office taking naps and posing for photos. Now imagine being Nikola Tesla, arriving in New York City with literally nothing but a dream and a very specific set of mental illnesses. Tesla did not just think about inventions, he saw them. He had a condition called visual ideation where he could build an entire engine in his mind, run it for 2 weeks, and then check it for wear and tear without ever touching a piece of metal. He was basically a living 3D modeling software from the future, living in a world of steam and coal. He was a man who hated germs and was obsessed with the number 3. He had to walk around a building 3 times before entering, and he needed 18 napkins to clean his silver before every meal. He was the ultimate awkward genius, and when he met Edison, it was like a collision between a shark and a space alien. Edison saw a tool he could use, and Tesla saw a hero he could learn from, but the honeymoon phase lasted about 5 minutes because Edison's ego was too big to share the spotlight, and Tesla was too smart to keep his mouth shut about how crappy Edison's technology actually was. Let us get into the dirty details of why Edison's direct current, or DC, was actually a massive pain in the neck. Imagine you live in a nice house in Manhattan and you want light bulbs. Well, with DC, you need a massive copper cable the size of a human arm running through your walls, and because DC loses power so fast, you can only live about a mile away from the station. If you live 2 miles away, your light bulbs are just glowing orange threads that barely help you see your own hand. It was an expensive, inefficient nightmare that required thousands of power plants just to cover one city. Edison didn't care because he owned the patents for the copper and the generators and the bulbs. He was making bank on the inefficiency, and he wasn't about to let some Serbian immigrant with an accent tell him that there was a better way. Enter alternating current, or AC, which was Tesla's masterpiece. AC was like a superhighway for electrons, while DC was a muddy dirt road. AC could be stepped up to high voltages sent across hundreds of miles on thin wires and then stepped down safely right at your house. It was cheaper, better, and faster, and that is exactly why Edison decided he had to destroy it by any means necessary. This is where the street fight gets really ugly and honestly kind of psychotic. Edison knew he couldn't win on the science, so he decided to win by traumatizing the entire population of the United States. He started a massive smear campaign calling AC the executioner's current. He told reporters that if you had AC in your house, your children would be fried in their beds and your dog would explode just by walking past a wire. He hired a guy named Harold Brown, who was basically a professional animal executioner, to travel around the country putting on the most depressing shows you can imagine. They would get a crowd of people together in a town square and then use Tesla's AC system to electrocute stray dogs and old horses right in front of them. Edison would stand there like a circus barker, pointing at the smoking remains of a puppy and saying, "See, this is what Tesla wants to bring into your living room." It was a level of corporate evil that would make a modern billionaire blush, but Edison was just getting started because he wanted a grand finale that nobody would ever forget. The story of Topsy the elephant is the darkest chapter in this whole mess. Topsy was a circus elephant who had been abused for years and eventually snapped and killed a couple of people. She was scheduled to be put down, and Edison saw a golden opportunity for some high-definition propaganda. He brought a film crew to Coney Island in 1903 and strapped copper plates to the poor animal's feet. Then he surged 6,000 volts of alternating current through a body in front of 15 100 people topsy died instantly in a cloud of smoke, and Edison caught the whole thing on film so he could play it in theaters across the country. He titled the movie Electrocuting an Elephant, and it was the world's first snuff film used for marketing purposes. It was a brutal and insane move that showed Edison was willing to sacrifice anything and anyone to protect his monopoly on power. He even lobbied the state of New York to use AC for their new execution method, the electric chair, just so people would associate Tesla's name with the smell of death and high-voltage murder. But while Edison was busy being a movie villain, Tesla was busy actually building the future, and he found a partner who was just as petty as Edison. George Westinghouse. Westinghouse was a man who had made a fortune on air brakes for trains, and he hated Edison's guts. He saw Tesla's patents and realized that AC was the holy grail of industry. He bought the rights for $1 million and told Tesla to get to work. Now imagine the look on Edison's face when he realized his rival had the smartest man on Earth in his corner. The war was no longer just about light bulbs, it was about who would control the energy of the entire planet. The two sides clashed at the Chicago World's Fair, which was the 19th century equivalent of the Super Bowl times 10. Whoever lit the fair would be the one to light the world. Edison bid over $500,000, but Westinghouse underbid him by half and used Tesla's system to create a glowing wonderland that changed the way humans perceived the night. It was a total blowout, and Edison was so salty that he literally tried to ban Westinghouse from using any light bulbs that he had patented, thinking that would stop them. Tesla just sighed and said, "Okay, I will just invent a new light bulb then," and he did. He created a double stopper bulb that didn't violate Edison's patents and worked even better than the original. It was a massive flex of intellectual dominance that left Edison looking like a small-minded bully. The fair was a massive success, and soon the world realized that AC was the only way forward. But even after winning the war, Tesla was destined for a tragic ending because he didn't care about money, he cared about the frequency of the universe. He once said that if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. While Edison was counting his pennies, Tesla was trying to figure out how to pull energy out of the thin air and give it to everyone for free. He built the Wardenclyffe Tower to send wireless messages and power across the Atlantic, but his financier JP Morgan found out there was no way to put a meter on free energy and pull the plug faster than you can say capitalist betrayal. Tesla's lab was burned to the ground in a mysterious fire that destroyed years of research, and many people believe it was Edison's work, or at least his corporate allies, trying to silence the man who was getting too close to changing the status quo. Tesla spent his final years in a state of growing madness, living in hotel rooms and talking to birds. He became a germophobe who couldn't stand the sight of pearls or the touch of human hair. He claimed he had received radio signals from Mars and that he was working on a teleforce weapon that could melt airplane engines from 200 miles away. The world started to look at him as a crazy old man and forgot that he was the reason they had radios and remote controls and fluorescent lights. When he died in 1943, the FBI rushed into his hotel room and seized all of his papers, fearing that his death ray might actually be real and that the Nazis might get their hands on it. He died a penniless hermit in the middle of a world that was powered by his own brain. Edison, on the other hand, died as a national hero with a massive funeral and statues in his honor. But if you look at the fine print of history, you see a different story. Edison was the king of the 19th century, but Tesla is the god of the 21st. Every time you use a microwave or an induction motor or look at a neon sign, you are looking at a piece of Tesla's mind. He was a man who was pushed too far by a system that only valued profit over progress. He was the nice guy who snapped by refusing to play by the rules of the corporate Dutch bags, and in the end he achieved the ultimate revenge because his name is now synonymous with the future, while Edison is remembered as the guy who was mean to an elephant. The rivalry between these two men was a brutal and insane street fight where the weapons were volts and patents and the prize was the soul of the modern world. And even though Tesla died alone in room 3327, he is the one who got the last laugh because we are all living in his dream now. Imagine your life as a worker in Edison's Menlo Park lab. You are exhausted, your eyes are burning from the smoke of failed filaments, and your boss just walked in to tell you that you aren't going home for another 3 days because he wants to find a way to make a light bulb out of a piece of bamboo or a strand of beard hair. You are being paid peanuts while he gets the cover of every magazine and the credit for every breakthrough. You are part of the machine that builds the empire of a man who values your sweat but not your name. Now imagine your life as Tesla's assistant. You are watching a man who can summon lightning in a room and who spends his nights calculating the resonance of the earth. He doesn't care if you work or not as long as you Don't touch his napkins or disturb his thoughts. You are standing in the presence of a ghost from the future who is trapped in the past. It is a brutal and lonely existence, but you know that you are seeing things that no other human will. Understand, for 100 years, both of these men were geniuses, but they were also deeply broken in their own ways, and that is why their fight was so legendary. It was a clash of two different ways of being human. So when you flip that switch tonight and the darkness disappears in a microsecond, take a moment to remember the smartest street fight in history. Think about the Serbian immigrant with 4 cents in his pocket and the American wizard who tried to bury him. Remember that progress is often born from petty rivalries, and that the most insane ideas are usually the ones that change everything. The War of the Currents was a mess of betrayal, secret movies, and high-voltage drama, but it gave us the world we have today. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the chaotic minds of the people who built our reality. If you enjoyed this brutal deep dive into the lives of the geniuses who were too smart for their own good, then you are in the right place, because here at GNIOS Problemticos, we are just getting started with the secrets and the scandals of the smartest people to ever live. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for our next fight, because history is never as clean as the textbooks want you to believe. And we are here to show you the smoke and the sparks behind the curtain. See you in the next one.